welcome to Sonic Talk episode 480. Today, recording Wednesday, the 8th of February 2017. This is the podcast that talks about all things music technology, synthesizers, electronic music production, DAWs, live production, software, anything you care to fancy, and all the sort of ancillary subjects that surround it. So sit back. If this is your first time, we'll be on there for about an hour or so, and thanks to our brilliant sponsors, there'll be a competition later where you can win a copy of Isotopes Neutron, the mixing assistant plugin. So do stay tuned for that. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, I heartily encourage you to do so, because we've not only you might have missed the 100 or so NAMM videos we just posted, which we'll probably talk a little bit about later, but also there's a lot more stuff coming up. There's a System 8 review, a Roland System 8. I've got the Arturia Matrix Brute. You know, that's the kind of stuff that we look at. So please do. And I will say it's also because we're not far off our 100k subscribers, and I really want to get there this year as soon as possible, so I can have a play button just here. And it's a magic number. Anyway, those chuckles you heard are the first of my guests. We'll start with Mr. Richard Hilton, who's over there in Connecticut, who is keyboard player for Chic, works with Nile Rodgers in the studio, does all sorts of stuff. Probably just back. You were in London on Saturday night, I believe, for a party, and so was I, bizarrely. But yours, I couldn't do both. Playing with Chic. How are you, Rich?
Very well, thank you.
I'm glad to hear that. A good trip? Did you get a chance to kind of enjoy London, or was it in and out?
In and out.
In and out, yeah. Sometimes.
I mean, I always enjoy London, and I'd never seen this particular magnificent place, this Scion Park Castle, which is where this event was held. It was really an amazing place and an amazing event, and it went really well.
I've never heard of that place. That sounds like an interesting venue. Anyway, we'll come back to you shortly. I'll introduce the second of our two guests, Mr. Gaz Williams, live from Bristol. Gaz, a bass player, producer, dancer, and also music technologist. How are you, Gaz?
Yeah, I'm really, really, really happy to be here today, actually. I've been dying to be on the show for ages.
Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah. I can't think. It must, well, because we had a couple of weeks out over Christmas and then obviously for NAMM, so it must have been a month.
Yeah,
that's just too long.
Loads of stuff happens, doesn't it, in a month in music technology, especially over the NAMM period.
Yeah, well, that's true enough. That is true enough. So, well, I thought we may as well get. Oh, actually, I should also say hi to our chat room, which is that's not the chat room. That's the chat room. A bit depleted. We're working on getting the IRC server working up again, and there are some of you who are probably in the YouTube discussion area. In fact, there's a lot of people there, so thanks for hanging in there. We will get that sorted out. But anyway, yeah, NAMM. So I guess we should come to you, Gaz, first, because we spoke to Rich last week and he had his picks and stuff. You wrote a little column as well, so you're kind of tuned in to what you thought was great from there. So have you got any kind of picks? Anything you'd like to chip in before we get on?
Well, I know you've gone into it in some depth, but the Dreadbox Abyss is something that has given me the drool. I love my Erebus so much. So seeing that and just seeing how what a brilliant thing with the effects built into it, beautiful, brilliant thing. I want one.
Okay.
Yeah, so other than that, I mean, that was from a personal point of view. Other from that, I thought the waveform thing was very interesting. That's traction sort of changing into waveform and being demonstrated running on a Raspberry Pi, something I've really looked forward to, that notion for a while now. And this idea that they're developing a little card, an audio card that essentially can couple not through USB, but directly. I don't know. Is that through the pins, or I'm not sure.
No, I don't know. There are a few connections on a Raspberry Pi. It could be any one of those sets.
That gives really high quality in and out, or I say really high quality, audio quality. I think, from what I gather, decent pro quality connection. So that little board then with Raspberry Pi and being able to run waveform headless as well, being able to run it. I put it into
as a recording box, effectively, yeah.
As a recording box, build samplers, build synthesizer, put it, just wow, I think, and so cheap and so accessible. It's like, whoa! I thought that was really. That's kind of tiny, small news in some ways, but I think it's huge news personally.
Yeah, micro devices, single-purpose micro devices on common hardware, not a bad idea.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that that was one of my big things, and a few other things. I mean, obviously the Electron Digitact, I think, looks great in that I think it's just exactly what they should be making, and it's a good price point. It's still quite expensive in some ways compared to some other things, but
for
it's
Electron, it's not. Yeah.
That's going to be great. It is going to be. That will be a great drum machine. It'll probably, I think, set the standard for digital drum machines. I think
it could do, couldn't it? It could do.
Yeah, that's my feeling.
Yeah, I mean, because I'm just trying to think what else. I mean, obviously we've got. I mean, the MPCs are not really digital drum machine. Well, they are, but they're not just that. Whereas the Digitact is what it looks like, just going to be that, right?
Yeah, I mean, but it's similar price. It's a little bit cheaper though to the MPC Live. So I mean, in a way, the MPC Live just bashes it, left.
If that's what you want, yeah, I suppose it does.
If that's what you want,
yeah.
But the more thing, the idea of this just drum machine, just the whole notion of drum machine with all the terrific electron sequencing tricks built in, and a decent amount of sample RAM for a drum machine, and the gigabyte storage inside it as well, does mean that you could load it up with just the very best stuff, and therefore, as a drum machine, brilliant. I don't expect it to be a player's thing. I'm not sure even if those pads are velocity sensitive, so I think
I don't know. Still, details are still very scarce. That's true.
Yeah, there's someone has gone on from Electron onto the Electron forum and has given a little bit more information about it since NAMM, because and I think pretty much something that's been confusing people is the term of 8 audio tracks, thinking that there is a digital drum synth in there. I don't believe there is. I think it is a sample based. It is a sample based machine. I might be wrong about that, but that's what I think that the forum post was alluding to. But still, that's getting into the nitty gritty. I think the thing is, it looks brilliant. And
just do a little bit of his free. Yeah, that's what it's going to look like close up and personal.
Yeah,
so, it's got like there we are.
Electron machines have a real sense of purpose. They're not particularly the most easiest things to use, as most people kind of know, but they are incredibly rewarding in that they really do what they do, and they sound terrific. So I think I think when that comes out, I think for certain people, I think that is going to be almost like a dream box, actually. I think. Drum box.
I think that's a fair comment for sure. There were a few other little stragglers I didn't get a chance to talk about. One of them was this Ansmann's. I don't know if you saw this. The Ansmann Pro Audio Batteries, which is on the face of it, it's kind of a dull concept, but actually, these little AA's are super powerful. In fact, these ones are the Mackie Pros, which aren't as powerful, but they have a very long life. Actually, let me just grab. I got a set. These up, and you can have a look. I got a set of these as well, which they just said try them out, and these are two 2850 milliamp hour AA's. And these are kind of for high, they're for sort of high output, long lasting. I think they last up to 14 hours in like a radio mic. They only got 300 charges in them, but they're only about $5 more expensive than a set of lithium ions, which are the best ones that's what we use. And I think the one thing that they were talking about was they just have all these testimonials from people that used to spend thousands and thousands of dollars or pounds on AA's for their artists, for their in-ear monitoring, for all of that stuff, and they've just kind of cut their battery cost and therefore recycling issues massively. And I just think it's a very small thing, but it's actually really cool. I don't know, Rich, I mean, you use in-ears, don't you? And presumably are they powered? They're presumably powered by AA's as well. Have you heard of these Ansmanns? Because everybody I've said I just heard about these go, yeah, I know about them, and I'm like, oh, I thought I'd discovered something.
I hadn't heard about them, and I spent some time this morning looking at them, and almost I'm this close to pulling the trigger on these. I have to buy a charger if I do, but I don't really need them for the purpose that you're describing, and they do have another model that has many more recharges and lasts, I think, a bit longer.
Yeah, that's these guys, the Mackie Pros, which are
and they say those are really good, just normal alkaline behavior replacements. And maybe I've done this before. Maybe I'll do it.
You don't seem to.
Oh, you don't seem to have
Siri.
any. So you
Siri
don't seem to have any
decided to, like,
batteries,
listen in.
Rich.
Siri joined in for a second there. Wow, look at that.
Bless her. Bless her. Yeah, I mean, the Maxi Pros, without getting too sort of nerdy about it, the Maxi Pros last longer. They hold the charge. So if you charge them up and leave them from a year, it's something like 1% a month discharge they've got. Whereas the ones, these ones that I was showing you are much stronger, but they discharge at like 5% a week or something. So they're for kind of continual use. But I mean, it's going to be a massive saving for us.
The ones you're holding recharge, I think, 300 times, and the other ones recharge like 2,000 times or something.
Yeah, that's right.
So they have less milliampage.
Yeah, they have less milliamp. But this is kind of a big, and they do different sizes as well, Gaz. I mean, you know, you can get PP3s and Cs and D types and that sort of stuff, but they're less easy to get hold of, I think.
I've got loads of AA batteries here, and I've been switching over to Eneloop over the last few years, because they're really gorgeous colours, loads of really nice colours. and that, you know, I'm a sucker for that. I think the colours, you know, I'd rather have the batteries run out 5 minutes earlier, but be pretty colours. No, that's a stupid thing to say.
Depends on which 5 minutes they are, don't they? Yeah.
And what the colours are.
Good point. Yeah. But yeah, the Eneloops are brilliant, though. The Eneloops have got that slow discharge. What are they called? Memory batteries, don't they?
Yeah, I'm not sure what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, they're great in things like Volkers, you know.
Yeah, that's where you could see these sort of things being useful.
You don't need them all the time, but it's brilliant when you power it on and it comes alive, you know. But the 2850 ones you're talking about, they will discharge reasonably quickly. You've got to charge them just prior to what you need them for, though, aren't you?
Right, yeah, I think so. But, I mean, certainly for us, I mean, I took 40 batteries with me to NAMM for the team. So, you know, it would be a bigger outlay, but they would be, I could use them for, you know, probably a couple of years. And because I'm not going to use them all that often as long as I leave them in the right state. So, I mean, that's going to be a ultimate saving, yeah. And you have smart chargers, so they charge each battery individually, so you get a kind of completely, you know, intelligent. Anyway, it's not the most fascinating of subjects, but I think it's actually quite an important one. So I just wanted to point out, it's you can find them at, let me see where it is. It's Ansmann, 2 N's on the end, -pro-audio.com, and you can get all the gubbins from there. And I think a lot of the, you know, major retailers in the US stock them as well, so you can get them. And there's loads of videos of people going, I can't believe how much money. In fact, one thing they did say is they put Cirque du Soleil on them, who used to get through something like 50,000 batteries a year. They're now down to 5,000. And they're saving a massive amount of money. You can get these kind of rack chargers that'll do 16 at a time and what have you. So, yeah, although I bet they're expensive. So anyway, that was that. That was going to. There was another thing that came out of NAMM, which I'm not sure that we necessarily saw, and that was. Did you see the Softube Console 1 price drop, 40% off, now $599 US, and it also controls some and probably more UAD plugins, which is actually it's getting kind of interesting. I know we had a look at one of those, but we didn't ever kind of get to the final furlong with that.
Well,
but
we did a review of it, didn't we? But there was a sort of a slight disagreement going on.
There's a philosophical disagreement.
A philosophical disagreement. But yes, so I spent quite a bit of time with the Console 1 and thought it was a very, very good, very nice thing. And I think my criticisms, I think, even would still be the same, however, lessened somewhat with this. I think the price point is so much better. It was quite an expensive item. Saying that, it feels like an expensive item. So I think that is it did feel like a premium item. So I think that's cool. I hope they don't lower the build quality of it to meet that price point, because I think the build quality is lovely. The fact that it's going to control UAD, there's something quite nice about that, isn't there? Hardware controlling sort of DSP software and it just being something all tangible and in front of you.
Yeah, for sure.
Nice. I think I'm going through a little bit of not an anti-UAD phase, but I got stung before with powered plugins. Sorry, going off track. I'll come back very quickly. And UAD stuff, it seems to be, the graphics of them seem to be so seductive to people, you know. But, you know, and operating the graphical interface seems to be a big selling point of the UAD stuff, because, you know, I think sound-wise they're great. There's nothing wrong with them, but there's other things. There's other things equally as good, in my opinion. But having that hardware control of it takes it into a different league then.
Yeah, I know. I totally agree. I know, Rich.
Yes.
Rich, you're in the box a lot, aren't you? So, I mean, have you considered something like this? I mean, I don't think there's anything that's actually quite like this in terms of having that level of control over your standard kind of signal route. If you were using it, unless you were, mapping all those controls yourself. I mean, obviously, it works with Softube plugs and some UAD, but not a lot of others.
I have troubles with this product.
Oh.
Just on the face of it, and I haven't operated it, so I could be sold. But there is a lot about what the decisions they made that are not the decisions I would make. So I would need to actually physically operate it and feel it and love all of their stuff that much. Also, while I'm thrilled that they've incorporated UAD, and I get everything Gaz is saying about the seductive nature of a familiar visual interface, you don't get to see that interface. In fact, their interface is even compromised. You're basically flying blind when you use the UAD stuff. And that, to me, I hope they're all sitting down because I love their stuff, is half-baked. And I think you got to fully bake this thing. Just show us UAD's graphics. It must be really hard to do because they're not doing it. If it was easy to do, I figure they just would have done that. And the fact that it doesn't operate their graphics in the same way that their stuff does is not a surprise, and I'm not disappointed. I'm not mad about it. It's just that you're basically flying blind when you run the thing, and that's not... I mean, there is some numerical readout that I saw on their screen that indicates what's happening when you're turning a knob. So you are actually interfacing with it, and there is something that looks like something, but there's nothing like...
No, I think what you do get is the EQ curve, if it's an EQ, but yes, and perhaps if it's other things, it may not be as
No, they take away the curve. They just leave the FFT part. They take away the curve, and it's probably because their software that draws the curve doesn't interact with each individual UAD plugin in order to be able to show you that, and it's all sort of understandable, but show me something.
Yeah, in an ideal world. I just
kind of feel like show me something. And like I say, I'd need to operate. I'm not sure about those 20 buttons being behind all those knobs. There's a bunch of things about it that I'm not sure about that I'd need to operate. And if they want to send me one, I'll sit here and I'll figure it out. But but would I? And actually, yes, the price point is really nice now. They've dropped it to $500, and I hear the build quality is great. And when I got near the thing, it looked like a solid piece of gear to me. So I'm prepared to be sold, but I'm not sold yet.
Okay, that's a fair point. That's a fair point.
They have increased the brightness of the LEDs, I believe, as well. Because I think that
so.
was
Yeah.
Something, in the first one, it's very kind of serious and slick-looking piece of kit with this kind of quite dim LEDs, which was quite nice for that. But in reality, you had to sort of move around a bit to actually see the LEDs. So I think if they've made those LEDs a little bit stronger, that'll make it a bit better. But the one thing I wanted to say, sorry, I was a little bit confusing about what I was trying to make earlier. But when you use the Console 1, really the way they want you to use it is to insert it into every single track. So if buying something like this, I think is a certain investment, but you do have to put that investment into your workflow as well. If you don't insert it into every track, it starts to get slightly confusing to use it. So I think that's the thing that was kind of a worry for me. Not so much, it's not a deal breaker, or maybe it is a deal breaker, but that you just do have to incorporate it,
right.
I got you can do this with a template maybe. And
yeah, I see. What do you think it is about Scandinavians and enforcing workflows that without flexibility? Because it seems to be a recurring theme, don't you think? I mean, with Electron, that it's like this way, this is the way it does. It's an interest.
The Swedes are very kind of, yes, we like it being this way, and very kind of... But at the same time, the country also creates people who do the exact opposite as well. So I think it's a funny one. Sweden, the Swedes are the greatest, though. I love them to bits.
Yeah, we should say that we're not trying to get into generalizations, but it's not the first time that this has come up. That's all I was just saying. Anyway, Rich is looking like he probably wants to exit the program at this point.
Some of my best friends.
Oh yes, absolutely.
And I think that Electron stuff is actually brilliant once you dive into it. My biggest problem is what they're showing you, not what it does.
Yeah.
And that isn't even that big a problem. But I really think their stuff is wonderful, and I applaud their innovation. My friends at XLN Audio, who do all that addictive drums, addictive keyboard stuff, they just released the Trigger program. I love those guys. There's just a lot of cool innovation.
That is true, and I would say it's all quite brilliant. It's not like it's bad. It's I wasn't trying to imply that at all. Anyway, I'm backpedaling now. Can you tell?
Sure,
as I move away from the microphone.
I think I'm not sure there's a pattern here.
Okay, fair enough. I'll take that on the chin.
I think they get really into they're so into design. They're so into design.
That's true enough.
So they'll design a workflow and wow, and that workflow's brilliant, but you do have to kind of sort of
you have to be on board. Be on board.
But I think it is because the depth of their design, they go, and that's.
Yeah, maybe you're right there. I think maybe it's time for a brief interlude while I try and regroup and gain some sort of respect for myself and from our listeners. So I'll just have a little word from our sponsors. It's always nice to hear from them, and here they come. This is, of course, Isotope. This is Neutron, which is a suite of kind of plugins and features that allow you to analyze your mix, figure out graphically kind of where the holes are, where the conflicts are frequency-wise, and then act accordingly. Gives you plenty of tips on maybe how you might want it. Figures out, this is a bass guitar, maybe you want to try considering this EQ and this processing. This is the masking meter, which shows you where the conflicts are and how you might be able to resolve them, which, as many of us find with mixing, I'm not really a mix engineer, but I find it quite difficult sometimes to know what's going on, and this really helps evaluate that whole process and kind of gives you another perspective on it, which we can all do with, right? I mean, we listen to it on headphones, buds, in the car, on various different speakers from the other room, and this is just yet another aspect to that whole process, which may well end up in resulting in your mixes just being better. And if you want to check it out, you go to isotope.com/neutron, and you can get hold of a demo from there. And actually, we have competition. Last week, we asked you to tweet the hashtag MixItBetter and Neutron to @Sonicstate and @Isotope Inc. And I got a winner, and the winner is a chap called Angry Bonbon. This is the Twitter handle @AngryBonbon, and he just said, or she says, "Help me mix better. I have cloth ears," which I think is, that's a fair point. It's probably quite similar to mine. Mine aren't quite cloth, but they certainly have difficulty deciphering mixers from time to time. Right, and we should say that there is another competition this week to win Isotope Neutron. What you have to do is tweet the hashtag #TheMixChamp. Thought I'd get kind of a bit more kind of pizzazz to this. The MixChamp, it's all one word, and the hashtag Neutron, that's NEUTRON, to @Sonicstate and @Isotope Inc. If you tweet those very words, you can also add pictures and comments and stuff. Everybody does look at these things. Then you will be entered to the competition, and you will have a chance to win a full copy of Neutron, which they will send your way should you be the lucky winner. Once again, we thank Isotope for their continued sponsor of the show. Very much appreciated. Right, Gaz, I'm guessing this one might be something that you're excited about, which is the Korg Gadget for OS X, right?
Yeah, brilliant. Wow. I mean, I wonder if this was always in their game plan, or just because Gadget just got better and better that they just thought, wow, let's expand it. But Gadget is a great way of working, actually. It's a brilliant workflow. I think that's... so it's going to be very interesting to see if that workflow moves across to the computer. I think it will. I think it really will, especially if you've got a little... I think essentially if you've got a MIDI keyboard control to it. But there's a bunch of things that are interesting about it. But I mean, sadly, it's Mac only, I think.
Yeah,
and I wonder whether that is just because it's relatively easier to go from
iOS to Mac. Yeah, well, I'm guessing that's the path Apple want you to take. What's interesting about this is the fact that, we have, in the same way that we have GarageBand to Logic, this is giving you a similar path. I'm assuming you can open, and also as far as I understand it allows you to. There are going to be some new gadgets which allow you to actually record directly into it.
Yes, there's a Zurich. Zurich, which is a tape machine. And they've got a very nice graphical sort of reel-to-reel look for that. And the good news is that is coming out on iOS, so you will be able to do audio recordings into Gadget soon.
I wonder how that will work, because obviously it works in patterns, in the kind of like patterns and scenes, so there might be a fixed length recording, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's what it'll be. I think you'll probably predefine a little bit like a loop station. You'll predefine the loop length.
Right. Okay.
I'm assuming this is entirely speculative, but I think because this workflow, as I was mentioning, is so fluid, actually adding audio functionality makes a lot of sense, and it's also going to be, I think, quite important with Gadget to maintain a platform sort of agnostic
parity,
thing where parity across the both. I'm not sure if that's the case. In fact, it certainly won't be the case when Gadget Mac OS launches, because certain things, and this is a bit of, I mean, as far as I know, the Odyssey or whatever, and the Wave Station, and I think they're not going to be available because I should mention all of the gadgets, you'll be able to open them as individual VSTs.
I'm sure they'll get there, though. Rich, you look like you want to come in there.
Well, I'm confused. I'm going to lay bare my magnificent ignorance on this, because I still don't understand what this thing is or what it does. You compared it to GarageBand and Logic, so I'm wondering, is it a DAW? Is it a platform host for synths? Is it something that I can use from within my DAW as a plugin? I don't understand the product.
I think it's the easiest thing to compare it to, I think, would be Reason. I think
they want to make a self-contained DAW out of it.
Yes. I think that's probably so. It's like a MIDI sequencer but it's like a combination of Reason and Ableton Live, because it uses a very similar clip launching interface as Ableton Live for the sequencing.
So they're sort of leveraging K-Oscillator and some other technologies into a sort of a almost platform of music creation.
Guess so. And one of the things that's quite appealing is that the little gadgets, as they call them, are usually fairly restricted synthesizers with only a handful of parameters, as opposed to the full depth synthesis. That's not entirely the case for some of the additional in-app purchases that you can get more sophisticated things. But all the ones that come with it are all reasonably easy to learn and are quite nice for flavors of particular synths. And I think it's quite appealing for beginners as well, because these.
Yeah, I mean, I would say. I would say that I did a little. I got asked to do a short spot on the CBC Technology Show this week. I don't know when it's going to be going out, but I was quite excited because it's like, Radio 1 for Canada apparently. So, I mentioned, because they were saying, is iOS a relevant platform for music creating? And Rich, one thing I would say is that Gadget is really easy and fun to use, which is obviously the primary thing, but it lets you get really deep if you want. So you can start by pressing a few buttons and going, hey, this is great, but you can make some really quite complex arrangements.
Yeah, I think it's
I get it
the
now.
fact that,
thank you.
And certainly on the iPad, one of the things that's absolutely fantastic is that every single control is automatable, and they've got that aspect, and the touch editing of the automation is really pretty special. I think that they've absolutely nailed something to do with the UI. Now, that is not going to go across to the Mac version. So that's what's going to be interesting to see.
Gaz, Failed Muso in the chat room has just said, in the YouTube chat, said, why would someone buy into the Gadget mobile desktop paradigm at $299? I don't know if that's the price when they can buy Logic Pro and GarageBand.
I don't know where that price is.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's an interesting question.
That is, but I know, because it's really, I mean, you've kind of said about how great the value is of Logic, and it is really good value, and GarageBand is also very impressive too. So it's definitely, but it's nice to have a different flavour to it. In fact, when I was at, I might have said this. I mean, this is one of the reasons why I bought the MacBook Pro, is because I went to an Apple briefing I don't know if I'm even allowed to talk about it. I suppose I am. It didn't make me sign anything, so I don't see why not. And they showed me GarageBand working on an iPad Pro, and it's got loads of really interesting. I think this is either out now or going to be out. I guess it would be out now. They wouldn't show me anything preview. And it's really got very DAW like in the fact that you can actually insert VST type or AU type plugins now in on tracks, and it's starting to get very not totally indistinguishable, but very for GarageBand now, it's really starting to show some amazing features that are very DAW like, and ditto with Logic, with the MacBook Pro. Using the touch strip and having all of those kind of key commands and metering and being able to swipe along the arrangement, it's all, you start going, oh yeah, and that's possibly, if Gadget get to use the touch bar, then that's where, because it's this sort of hybrid area, and I know it seems gimmicky, but it's actually really quite cool when you see it going. So I don't know, Rich, if you've seen one of those touch bar Macs and kind of seen how it integrates, it's kind of impressive.
Yeah, I've seen one. It's right here.
Oh, you got one. I didn't know
right next to me.
Wow, okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, I haven't used it for music creation, and I haven't actually even. I was just thinking I should launch Logic and take a look. I haven't actually done any of that yet, but I have big plans for this thing actually, as regards my aspirations with this Rolly that's over here and the synth that's behind the screen here.
What did you get? What MacBook did you get?
Well, I got a 13 because I like 13s, not 15s, and it's, what has it got? 512. Sort of it's not an SSD or whatever it is. It's RAM-based memory.
Yeah.
I think I got 16 gigabytes of actual RAM.
Right.
And the touch bar.
Yeah. Excellent.
Beauty. It's a beauty.
It's funny.
And an i7 processor. It's a pretty souped up MacBook Pro. It's very nice, actually.
Yeah.
I
find this one.
You know what? It's taking me a while to get used to typing on it.
Yeah,
and I'm not sure why.
There's less travel on the keys, and they are slightly, because what I keep doing is
it feels like the spacing is different, and I can't.
I keep hitting the / instead of return. I don't know if you find that as well. That's what I keep doing.
I wish that was my biggest problem, but I'm getting used to it. Well, and also I keep laying on the trackpad, but I'm getting used to it, and I really like it. And the speakers actually sound half decent.
God, they do, don't they? They're impressive sounding. Anyway,
as compared to the MacBook Air, it's replacing, which I was madly in love with for many years. It was heartbreaking, but this is a great computer.
Yes. Can I ask about those touch bars? Do you think it's an inevitability that, and when we saw something on Create Digital Music, that Apple are going to release a typing keyboard with the touch bar as a sort of remote?
Oh, that's an interesting idea. I can't see how that. I mean, moving that sort of amount of data over Bluetooth would be kind of difficult.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure it's that high density. There's not that much to it. Most of it's switching.
Rolly C-boards are all.
Well, that's a lot of data.
Yeah,
over a lot of channels.
Yeah, that's true.
Got one right here, actually.
Yeah, there you go.
Hey!
Go, Rich. Anyway, but yes, cool. Sorry. Oh, Gaz, yes.
What? Oh, sorry. I just wanted to talk about Gadget only in the price. Has that price been confirmed?
I have no idea. I think it's fair to say that no, I have no confirmation of price. I haven't,
because I think if it was $299, that would be crazy.
That would be too much. Yeah,
that would be crazy. I think it really would. So I think let's hope that the price won't be that different from the iOS version. And I wonder if there's going to be a upgrade path for iOS users as well. So that would be interesting.
Yeah,
to see.
I don't know.
And also, if you buy Gadget and buy the in-app purchases on the iOS,
do they transfer? Yeah,
do they transfer? There's a bunch of questions like that I've yet to see answered. So that's what I'm interested to see.
Right, well, that's fair enough, but so soon is when it's coming, but we don't know exactly when that might be. Okay, right, how do you feel about the Big Knob, guys? Because Mackie have updated their lineup, and it's really fun. I know we talked about the PreSonus Fader port, which was an update after sort of quite a long time, 10 years plus. I think this must be even longer, because I remember, I think one of the first videos we ever shot at a show, and it was in London somewhere, was with Woody and the Big Knob. And that is a long time ago. So they've now updated the versions.
There's
so
a
now,
band name for you.
Yeah, but then we've got Big Knob
Woody
passive.
and the Big Knob.
Very good. Yes.
That's the show title if ever I was
Woody and the
one.
Big Knob. I don't know whether I've got the well, I was going to say the balls to do that, but that's even worse, isn't it? But so yeah, here we are. This is the Big Knob. I mean, and there are three models. There's just a passive monitor switching. There's which is a 2x2, 2 in, 2 out. There's or 2 sets in and 2 sets out. There's 3 in and 2 out, 2 monitor outs, and then there's this Big Knob Studio, which is 4 in, so 4 sources and 3 out, but it's got a USB audio interface, which is kind of, it's a bit like there was a Behringer thing that was a bit like that was kind of useful. I mean, this really sort of throws up the kind of concept of how because most of us are now working in the box, and when we are, what are we using to actually control our sets of monitors and all that kind of stuff? Rich?
Yes.
I
use right here is Motu Track 16, which I love. It's
and you just
fantastic
reach over and turn up and turn down. It's got a master volume.
It's right here, and everything it's got great input switching buttons, and I actually even dig their software interface once you get the hang of it, and it's really nice. To speak for 1 minute about this Mackie line of products, Big Knob, it serves a very particular need. They're excellent products for the money, and I really like them. And I bought one, more than 10 years ago for a guy to use as a control room center, exactly what it was designed to do, a bunch of inputs and some monitor control. And it worked fantastically. It didn't seem to impart any sound or level of cheapness to the sound. And is still being used today. And
that's the Track 16.
capacity.
That's the thing that looks a bit like a baby face.
Well, no, that's the one I have here on the desk.
Right.
And at Niall's house, we have a 1971 Neve console being run by a TC Level Pilot knob.
That's what I've got. I've got a Level Pilot. I was going to get on
Level Pilot's great. What a great product that is. And I don't even know if they make it anymore, but it's a really, really nice, smooth volume control. It's really great. And we run the console flat out all the time because that's where it behaves the best, and it all sounds great over there. But not many of us have 1971 Rupert Neve designed consoles. Monitor pad.
That's quite true.
Wow.
I'm just seeing if I find a Level Pilot. Level Pilot is just a simple kind of very nice quality passive aluminium knob with a lot of weight to it. It's I remember because we went to NAMM. This is I don't know, several years ago. And they were giving out kind of gifts to the press people, and me and Andy both got one, and I've used it ever since. The only thing that mine is there's a slight bit of at one point in the turn, but I'm not using it as a master thing. And so I'm just trying to bring up a picture of it because I can't reach it so that I can show you. Here we go. This is what it looks like. It's just that. It's basically a couple of XLR tails on a really nice quality passive volume knob.
Beautiful machined knob. It's really. Talk about a gorgeous knob.
It's about 60 quid. It's not a cheap thing. So or certainly is now. I know.
Now,
guys,
my knob may not be as gorgeous, but it's maybe more functional and probably a bit harder as well. This thing is called the Palmer Monicon, and I've kindly unplugged it all just to come and demonstrate it.
Didn't break anything.
Passive controller. It's got a mute control and a mono control on it, and a really nicely weighted volume control. And on the back is just XLRs in and out, but actually they're kind of combos on the way in. And one of the lovely little design features is it's got mini jack in and out on there as well. So actually you can use it. It's a really quick way of just kind of getting phones and different things in to a system. And
it's passive, right?
Yeah, passive, but about 40 quid, and it's beautifully made. I just think it's a really cool little box, that. So I thought it'd be nice to show you that one because, I use a few different things. I've got my KRK Ergo, which is it's a monitor controller, but it's also a room equalizer thing. We've talked about that before. But in front of me, I have my Steinberg little CMC controllers, and when I'm working within Cubase with the control room functionality turned on, the AI controller, which any Cubase users, honestly, go and get them. If you can find any, they are.
Yeah, they're
brilliant.
Discontinued now, I think.
They're well discontinued. But if you were just to find one, that AI controller, because it's just got that big wheel, and that wheel you can toggle what it is from the AI function. If it's a AI function, you just hover it. Whenever your mouse is hovering, you've got a kind of control. Or you can hit it to volume, and you can map all the buttons to do all your control room functionality. I've got mine doing mono and reference level, dim, that sort of thing. But only when I'm using it in Cubase. So
I'm just looking for. Is that it there? Is that the thing in question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any Cubase user.
That's like that's a MIDI controller, though, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a MIDI controller. Sorry, that's what I mean. It's but it's doing the function of a control room console, center console.
Okay. I got you.
Only if you're running the Cubase control room functionality.
Yeah, I see.
That's
because there's quite a lot of things that do this now. I mean, you were talking about Emotu Track 16, the Apollo desktop twin and quad that's just been announced. The quad that's just been announced, or the Mark II, now has a lot more monitor control, and you can use it to control the outputs and alt speaker outputs if you've got a bigger Apollo system as well. So you end up with kind of, a lot of these things are starting to be built into this kind of stuff too. I don't know. Have you used the Apollo desktop? Have you seen that? That looks really tasty, actually, I must admit, because it's a similar concept, except obviously you've got the power plugins. I know we're going back to that thing, but
they've just released an update to it as well.
Okay.
It's one of the things that was at the show, is the
Mark II.
I don't remember the name of it. I don't remember. It's not called the Apollo. Is it the Apollo desktop? Is that what it's called?
Apollo desktop, yeah, it's a Mark II.
Okay.
Mark II's got extra monitors, controls, and various other things. In fact, we shot a video with the guys from UA before we went out, and we've got one in for review. It's being looked at. So there's a lot of this stuff about, but it is actually kind of a thing, isn't it? Because it's nothing worse than not having control of your monitor. It's nice to be able to kind of have something you can reach and grab and mute and all of those things, right? So
there is, and that's why these big knob things are cool, because they don't hurt your audio in terms of the passive nature of the volume changing, but they give you a lot of switching options that some people just need, and they don't need anything more than that. And these products really serve that well.
Yeah, I agree.
That's good. Can I just say one thing, Nick? Just whilst it's on my mind, this thing I got to go with my Behringer XR18, and now on the market, the Midas MR18 has just come out, which is exactly the same form factor as the Behringer ones, but it's got the upgraded Midas preamps. But one of the benefits to anyone out there who's got any of the Behringer range is that the iOS app has just had a major update, and loads of functionality which was currently locked out is now available, including DCA groups and mute groups. The full auto mix capabilities now available on the iOS app. So just thought I'd mention that.
I wish they'd do the same on the OS X app as well, because there's a thing that with the vintage reverb, because I know both me and Gaz are kind of avid users of the XR18. I use it a lot. I've got it sat over there. And there's a thing, and I use it for my live setup. There's a thing that you can do with the vintage reverb where it's got a freeze function. But you can only access that via the iOS app. You can't access it. So if I was to program it into a patch, I have to fire up the iOS app, save the patch, because I use the OS X app when I'm programming for live and stuff here, because I'm recording. And so I wish I'd like them to update that as well if they could.
Similarly, I was having an issue that I had to, if I needed to set up the bus sends to be stereo, you couldn't do that on the iOS app, so I'd have to go and connect it to the Mac just to do that. But that's all been fixed now.
Hey,
with this
glad to hear it.
So yeah,
glad to hear it. That's good news. So Rich, you were telling me you have been working on some archive and stuff retrieval. That's because, I mean, we should say at this point, every once in a while we do, suggest and encourage everybody who's working with digital audio or any kind of thing, get your backup sorted out, right? And you're demonstrating that very that very living proof of that.
Well, round about the beginning of the 00s, the accepted mantra for how you would protect your data was to have, in addition to hard drive copies, some form of tape backup. And there were various softwares that were recommended for this purpose. Some people used Mezzo. Some people used Retrospect. I fell into the Retrospect camp early on at the recommendation of my friends at Glyph. And so used it over various iterations, over various periods of time to back up projects that were quite often in progress and not finished. There came a point in the late 00s where the product Retrospect had been sold between various vendors, and they issued an edict at 7.0 that said, we're no longer going to be reading our old catalogs anymore.
What?
Correct. Like, you know that thing you were relying on for your long-term data storage?
That sucks.
You may now start feeding those tapes into our new software, which will start attempting to derive new catalogs.
And that used to take a long time and not always work, right?
Correct. Fraught with data errors and just generally speaking, a nightmarish procedure. I was appalled, and I still am. And so my meticulously manicured, tape collection then went into storage, which was nothing serious, just keeping it, dry and at room temperature, and sat for a while. And basically at the end of that process, I took everything I thought we might ever need moving forward from this moment, in terms of things we might be continuing to work on, and put it into hard drive form and put the rest of it into boxes and put it away. Some years passed, the Wayne's World.
As they do.
And this data has now been sitting for, I don't know, close to 10 years. And it became a conversation point between myself and a buddy of mine who works for Michael Bolton. And we can have another discussion about Michael Bolton. But anyway, we're both involved in data restoration. And he started telling me about his attempts and how he had a whole rig worked up that was doing this and running an early version of OS 10 and also OS 9 and versions of Retrospect and versions of Mezzo. And he's basically got different recall parameters than I've got. And he was going to be done with it pretty soon. And I was welcome to borrow it. And so it's sitting right over there on a table. And I've been spending my last few days with tapes that were begun as early as 1999. So that's going on 18 years old AIT data backup tape in a rotating head cassette shell. In other words, it goes into a rotating head mechanism that tears it open, rips the tape out of there, winds it around a rotating head drum. If you've ever seen the inside of a rotating head design, it's one of the most frightening mechanical devices known to man. The fact that it works at all is a small miracle. And over the last 2 days, I have had a better than 99% success rate in restoring these tapes. Wow. From almost 20 years ago.
And now, if I remember correctly, because I used to use Retrospect, and I used to get people to do the same thing and have tape drives. We use the little DAT type DAT data drives. The thing that was the real problem was storing the catalogs, because the catalogs get really big, don't they? And they're the sort of local reference file of what's on the tape, right?
There's a file in your computer operating system. In my case, it was Apple's operating system that represents the catalog contents of what's in that tape. Yeah. There are also catalogs and snapshots being written to the tape by the Retrospect software. And when you come to restore, say, a 6-tape catalog, a 6-tape backup of something that you've made that has been evolving over years and years and years, and you go to restore it, there's no one command that says, bring back everything.
Yeah.
You've got to peel through those snapshots one at a time and make sure you haven't missed anything, and make sure you're trying not to duplicate it, because otherwise you'll be there for the rest of your life. And you basically have to peel through it. And I developed, it was the second backup set that I developed the methodology that I had to go back and employ for the first one. It took me a minute to figure out how to make sure I wasn't missing anything.
Yeah, and, I just remember it being a really cumbersome. I mean, it made you feel more secure because hard drives were so expensive and tapes were relatively cheap compared. I mean, the tape drive itself used to cost a fortune. I mean, and now, I mean, are you using...
Hard drives don't have any kind of serious shelf life.
No, I suppose.
They don't. And the manufacturers will tell you as much. They don't guarantee them for long-term storage. We have a real problem. I got to tell you, with what's going to happen to the record of this time period in history, because it's almost all on some form of magnetic media that's going to wear out.
Yeah, that's true. I don't have a solution to that. I mean, I try and use the cloud, which presumably they rotate all of that stuff to a degree, and Dropbox and all those things. What are you? Because we're generating a lot of data. I mean, at least we're not into video. I guess you can print that.
I think there's going to be a way to embed it into human DNA. The entirety of the entirety of the internet embedded into human DNA. They haven't quite figured out how to do it yet, but then it'll just exist in all human. Well, if humans keep on existing, I don't know, maybe something like that. I've been busy looking at my multicolored
inner loops. Oh, lovely. You can't back up anything to those, unfortunately, but
yeah.
So are you like me? Do you just do the 2-drive trick where you just have a pair of working drives and you sync one to the other at every?
I just delete everything as I go. Everything. At the end of the session, I just delete everything. I'm a Zen studio. I'm a Zen studio master.
Self of his earthly possessions.
Wow. Rich, I noticed you were holding up 3 fingers there because presumably you have one off-site. One of ours is usually off-site, so.
Well, there you go. But 3, and 2 of them on-site and 1 of them off-site. I've got now. Basically, every time I buy a drive to use for something, for work purposes, I buy 2 of them. No, I buy 2 of those, and I also have a RAID array somewhere. And so the RAID array kind of aggregates everything, and the 2 are the working pair that get constantly synchronized.
Right. Still cheaper than 2-inch tape, anyway. So.
Yeah, right. And the data density. I mean, the funny thing is, I'm restoring these backups, and they're, I can recall when AIT2 Turbo got up to like 65 gigabytes on a single tape, and I don't think you could buy a 65 gigabyte drive at the time. I think you were down around the 18 gigabyte level at that moment.
Yeah.
As the big one, So that was like the big kahuna of storage right there. That was like you just bought a whole storage facility with keys and garage doors, and now it's like a pittance.
Yeah, that's true. Gaz, were you serious about deleting everything?
No.
So what do you do then? Do you have a pair of drives or 3? I mean, how do you do it?
I'm using I use a physical backup, and I've got a one of those Apple things that does that backs up
time
machine.
Right,
but I don't just use time. I've got the time machine going, but I don't trust it. So any projects I back up. But I also, every client I work with, I always insist that they buy a hard drive
and take a copy,
share the burden, and so the data always exists in different
2 places.
Different places. Nick, I know it's not a topic, but that Reverb that's been released today is well worth talking about. I think.
No, tell me.
It's a free one. And there's a few things that's interesting about it. Teufelsberg. Sorry if I'm saying that wrong.
Towering Berlin. Is that the towering?
Yes.
Is that this one? Oh, let's have a listen then. Quick.
Yeah. So it's a free convolution reverb.
Oops, hold on, if I do that. That sounds very authentically old platey and springy. I hesitate to play it. Yeah, carry on.
So the building itself was used as a listening post during the Cold War in Berlin.
Yes.
It was abandoned, I think. And it looks like it looks like a big knob and balls, actually, when you see it from some angles. Speaking of big knob. But it's been abandoned since, I think, 1991 or something, and but it's just got really incredible acoustics. So they've taken, I think, 6 different impulses from there and bundled it up into a little plug-in, which is just like a simple convolution reverb. But what is interesting is and that's free, and it's being made by Balance Mastering, who are
balancemastering.com. Yeah.
So they're giving it away for free. But what's quite interesting is it's built on the Juice platform as well. And
which is what Rolly own, isn't it? That's right, they bought that.
Yes, and we've been sort of expecting this, which is very easily built plugins. So this could be the start of something quite interesting. So this plugin, it's quite a simple little thing, but I bet I haven't tried it yet, but I bet it'll be an interesting little tool to have, certainly for free. I'm interested to see just how well it works.
Yeah, okay. Well, so you want to go to balancemastering.com, and I guess it's it was a news item, but I didn't write that today, so that's why I was completely oblivious to the existence of said free plugin. But yeah, well worth it. And it looks like you can get free impulse responses as well, by the looks of things. So you can get add to the impulse response set. They released that, and it looks like there's maybe more that they could. Yeah, there's maybe other ones coming, which kind of looks cool. That looks really useful. Good call. Right. Oh yeah, there was did you see the Nonlinear Labs thing?
Yes, I did.
Let me get to that. This is the synth engine. We saw this actually at let me see, audio and video. We saw this at Superbooth last year, and this is Stefan Schmidt and Associates who've created this. What was at the time seemed like an incredibly expensive but sort of designed to be very sensitive instrument. I'm just trying to see if I've got let's see if we can play one of these. Again, it's probably going to hum. That's one of them. There's another interesting sound here. It's capable of a really wide array of sounds, and this guy's a great player. And it's essentially a 2-oscillator system, but it uses kind of some quite complex feedback loops and processing. You get these kind of real couple of strong / FM tones, all sorts of things. And it's very, very sensitive, and it's got these very long kind of strips for control as well. Ooh, that looks fun. I remember, I think we shot a video with Stefan, and he was very nervous and wasn't very comfortable being on video, so I didn't use it because I wanted to kind of make sure that it came across well, because it's a really expensive thing, or it was at the time, and they were talking about selling it in terms of leasing it a bit like a piano, so that you would pay to use the machine, but also making it so it was a very different thing. But as far as I know, it's sort of built slightly on the concept of a reactor kind of development. Let's have a look. Graphical synthesis engine. I see if I can find there's an image here. So on the face of it, looks very simple. So you get a couple of oscillators and shapers, plus feedback mixes and additional effects, comb filter and a state variable filter, so you can get an awful lot of stuff. I know, Rich, you've just gone for the Rolly approach, which is an alternative input method and playing method rather, but this, I mean, I have to say, it looked like a very beautiful thing and beautifully made and really kind of quite an attractive thing.
Yes, it really does look like a performance instrument to me, and I was really enjoying watching them operate it in the videos. I didn't see it personally. I've never seen it, but it looks like it's really nicely built. From a sound standpoint, it reminds me kind of the phase modulation FME kind of world that Casio and Yamaha used to inhabit. But then it does a lot more than that. But it doesn't sound like an analog modeled synth.
No.
And it sounds great, but it doesn't sound like an analog model.
No, it definitely doesn't.
Something completely else. And it sounded wonderful. And they have a whole, I watched 10 or 15 playing demos today just to listen to what the thing sounded like. And it really sounds great.
It does.
And all the things it does well, it does them very well.
Absolutely. And it reminds me a little bit of that kind of concept of, when the Fairlight and the Synclavier were around, where these expensive prestige instruments, it sort of it feels like there's a niche for that kind of thing, perhaps.
It's a little bit like Synclavier FM in a way, in terms of the presentation, the audio presentation that you get. It's actually beyond what the Synclavier FM could do, probably significantly. They've got interesting pitch bending devices that they use. They've got an interesting ribbon that they can use in various ways. It looks like, and it's got a nice piece of wood. It looks like it's a really nice piece of wood that it's in.
Let me have a look. We're back to wood again.
Is it for sale?
I believe it's going to be soon. I mean, because they were some way down the line, some way off when I first saw it. I think that if I show you a picture of it here, if I remember correctly, this top panel, the sort of programming panel, is separate to this. So you can have just the instrument, and you can add this additional kind of control thing on the top, but you don't necessarily need the top panel. I'm just looking to see. We've started production of a first series, which will be available in March 2017. So,
soon.
I'm hoping we'll see it at Super Booth, because they're based in Berlin as well, as far as I can tell.
Okay, and any idea of cost?
No, when I asked Stefan before, it was upper end. It was right up there, sort of Rolly Seaboard when that first came, Rolly Seaboard Grand when it first came out, and beyond. But I don't know whether that's still the case, because I wouldn't want to say the price, because it might be wrong, and I don't want to kind of But yeah, it was expensive, but built.
Okay.
Unashamedly so, I suppose.
If I may. Related to the Rolly, because you've mentioned it now 3 times, and I'm chomping at the bit. There is a synth called Strobe 2 by FXpansion, who I guess are probably down the hall from Rolly or something. I don't know if it's the same company or they all know each other.
Rolly bought FXpansion.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. So they have a synth called Strobe 2 that's just released a new version of their synth that includes 200 patches ready to go with 5 dimensions of modulation. And I've got the thing in front of me on screen right now, and it's a heck of a lot of fun. It also isn't an analog synth, but it's a heck of a lot of fun. And I'm really enjoying it.
I think, but as a wider point, I mean, that's one of the things I've just done this, or mostly completed the System 8 review. And that's the one thing that I said, it's like, I don't care if it is or it isn't really. I mean, it's analog modeled, but it still sounds good. So, I mean, I think that's we just got to, need to get away from that, really.
This thing sounds great.
Is it an instrument? Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it feels fun to play. Well, certainly connected to this thing, it feels like enormously fun to play, and there's just a whole lot of variation you can get right off of your hands.
Which model did you get, Rich?
The Rolly Seaboard 49. I guess it's 49.
How's your technique coming on?
Rise. My technique is improving. Thank you. I'm working hard. I'm playing it constant. I can't stop playing it. It's got me. It's got me hooked. This thing.
Wow.
I'm now struggling to figure out how I'm going to use it with anything other than software that's designed to play these sounds. But for the moment, I'm having a really good time with their synth Equator and with this synth Strobe 2. And I want to try diving into a few other areas like Contact and Omnisphere and see if I can get good control of it. The trick here, I don't know if it's obvious, but the trick here is that the thing is transmitting pretty much on up to 16 MIDI channels at a time, depending on how many notes you're playing, because each note has its own full channel's worth of expression dimensions so that they won't conflict with any other note you're holding. So you basically, like if I wanted to record a simple melody in Studio One, I had to put 16 MIDI tracks into record a simple melody. So there's a trick to getting used to accommodating that much expression, and I'm still getting the handle on that. But as far as the actual keyboard technique part's going, I'm having a blast.
It's interesting. When I reviewed the Seaboard Rise, I remember I used Reaper, and I just put it into Omni mode, so a single track just recorded everything, which is fine. But the trick is, the problem is with the way that a DAW works with this level of expression is when you look at the data and maybe you want to edit some stuff, it's completely meaningless because there's just so much of it and it's not laned in a way that you would understand. So if you wanted to kind of tinker with a performance, it would probably be quicker just to play it again.
Per notes. Well, what about Cubase's per note expression editing?
I don't know. I don't know whether that is compatible. You may well be right. That would be interesting to find out. Sure.
May be. I've never looked, but there may be info on Rolly's site about that. They have pretty comprehensive interfacing instructions for a lot of things.
Okay. Well, that's worth checking out. I suppose we're now. It feels like we're kind of now at the end of our journey through this rather rambling set of topics that I provided this week. I will try and do better next time, but I hope it's been of fun for you guys.
As well.
Sure has.
Well, good. I'm very glad to hear that, and I want to say thank you very much to all our viewers on YouTube Live. Had a big amount of people in here today. Thank you very much for watching, and also we'll try and get the IRC stuff working again for you next week for those people that like to be there. And I want to say thanks to our sponsors. Don't forget, if you want to enter the competition, all you need to do is you go on Twitter and you tweet the hashtag #TheMixChamp at one word, and the hashtag Neutron, Neutron, to @Sonicstate and @Isotope Inc. And then you'll be automatically entered to the competition to win Isotope's Neutron, which I can heartily recommend. So it just really comes to say thank you very much to my guests. Rich Hilton, thank you very much for joining us this week. It's been a pleasure to have you aboard, as ever.
Thank you for having me. Always great.
You're more than welcome. And also Mr. Gaz Williams there as well. Thank you for joining us too.
Thanks. Brilliant. Lots of fun. Amazing.
Excellent. So,
really enjoyed it.
We'll probably say goodbye. Well, we will say goodbye now because I will end the show. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching. We'll see you next time. Don't forget to subscribe. We're still trying to get that 100K. So if you haven't, please do. Please.